when I became a parent, I really had a completely different view of the depth of God's love. When I had my boys, I thought, my goodness, if I have this love for them, and God is bigger than all of this, oh my goodness, how much does he love us?
Yeah.
So that changed my perspective and my relationship with God.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Trinity Talks. My name is Kyla, and this week I'm sitting down with three very special folks to talk about their family and how family intersects with faith. I'll just get them to start by introducing themselves. So who do we have here?
My name's Bill Cumming.
Yes.
They're Bradshaw's. I'm Bill Cumming.
Okay.
And I'm the father of it.
You're the father of it all. Okay. And who do we have here?
My name is Max Bradshaw, and I am the youngest of all of us.
Okay.
Okay, well, that makes me in the middle then, doesn't it? I'm Ali Bradshaw.
Okay.
Bill is my dad. Max is my son.
Okay, great. Yeah, so all of you have been part of Trinity's family, Trinity's life at some point. I just thought it would be fun to talk about how your faith has been similar, but also the different paths that you have all taken. So maybe the first question that I just have is, in thinking about family, how have your parents or grandparents helped to sort of shape your faith journey? Maybe we'll start with you, Bill.
Because I'm the oldest.
Well, just because you're here.
Because you're the most handsome.
Yes.
I grew up in a Christian family.
Yeah.
And it became my way of life from knee-high to... until it came to the stage where I proclaimed my faith publicly and joined a church.
Sure.
But that was a long time ago. I've never had a Damascus Road event. I can't say, oh, that's what...
Sure.
I grew up with it and grew into it.
Yeah.
And that wasn't Trinity.
No.
That was 3,000 miles away. And not even in the church I finished up with in Scotland, but in the village church.
Okay.
And I just grew through that, became, as a Presbyterian, should I mention that?
Oh, sure.
Here we go.
You're still welcome here. Yeah.
Yes.
She's worried because I said my mission in life was to convert Anglicans to Presbyterianism.
Oh, I see. And now we've got you here. So.
Yeah, and that was why I emigrated. I was 50 years an elder in the Church of Scotland, and it's sort of ingrained into me.
Yeah.
But you worship God wherever you worship God.
Well, of
and
course.
But I came to worship here because they were here.
I see.
Actually, that's why we came to Canada.
Yes.
It wasn't really a missionary event. I just
just more of a family event.
Yeah.
Yes, sure. Okay.
That's a start.
Yeah, no, that's a good start. Yeah, what about for you, Max? How have your parents or grandparents influenced your faith?
Well, my faith hasn't been going quite as long as theirs has, but it really was, we moved to Canada, and then we started coming to this church, and from there, most of my faith journey has been here, just because this is where I've been most of my life. And since then, I've kind of gone off to Guelph and found a church there. And then there's a church up in Muskoka where Chloe's parents are. So I have a few different churches that I've been to, but this one has been my main one. But really, it's just because my parents brought me here.
Right.
This is where I've grown up, where I've been connected with other people. And then my grandparents would come, before they moved here, they would come every 6 months or so, visit. And then they come here and sort of get to know people before they moved here. So everyone was already coming here, and it's just been a nice place to grow up and get my basis of faith started.
Sure.
Thanks to my parents.
Yeah, for sure. And what about for you, Ali?
I was going to say, Max was actually baptized in a church also called Trinity in Bristol in England.
Oh, okay.
Where he was born. So you did have a church that you don't remember before you came here. Well, kind of like my dad and Max, being brought up in a Christian household. I was always at church from the beginning. So church was a way of life, but it becomes... I think that's the gift that your parents give to you, that they take you and you're introduced and you learn, and then eventually you have to take your own step and you have to make your own faith choice. And so I started off in Moncrief Parish, the Presbyterian Church
Yes.
in East Kilbride, where I grew up. And then when Rick and I were married and living in Bristol, we tried a couple of different churches. We ended up in a church called, it was a Trinity as well, an Anglican church. And it had a fantastic student life. There would be a Sunday evening service.
Okay.
And there were hundreds and hundreds of young adults, all in their kind of 20s and 30s there.
Right.
And then I changed to the 9 a.m. service when I had Max.
Right.
It was a bit of a shock to the system.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And then when we moved here, I'd never been before. We didn't know anyone here, but I did have faith that we would find a church, and I know the benefits of a church family. I know how
Right.
important it is to have other Christians around you to support you and encourage you and guide you. And within a couple of weeks of moving here, we found Trinity, and after the first service, I came on my own. Rick was watching the kids, and I came on my own, and I went back home and I said, "That's it. I know where we're going. I found it."
Wow. Oh, that's so
And we've
cool.
been here ever since. So that's 21 years.
Okay.
This summer.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So church and faith has always sort of been a family affair, I guess.
Yeah.
For all of you, it's something you grew up in, but also something you continue to sort of choose.
Yeah.
For yourselves.
Yes,
yeah.
even now.
Even now.
Even in an Anglican church. God is still in an Anglican church.
And this is life. Oh.
So I'm wondering, I know, so you've already sort of mentioned, that we're all at different sort of life stages. And I think as we grow up and get different roles and things, that shapes our faith in different ways. So are there any ways that, being a parent or a grandparent has helped to shape your faith in a particular way?
That's a difficult one. Not that I'm aware of.
Sure.
But I think somewhere in there, probably.
Okay.
And there are stages within that. I mean, I look at Ali now in the church, and I don't think I've ever told her this, but when she decided to declare her faith and join the church,
Yes.
I was session clerk at the time, and my role with the minister was to welcome, as we talked about, new communicants.
Okay.
And it had never been shared with me until just before the event who the new communicants were.
Oh, okay.
So the minister knew,
Yes.
but I got a bit of a surprise when Alison Cumming was on the list,
Yeah.
which I knew nothing about it. She'd done this on her own.
Right.
And Rob talked about her sins and all that.
Yeah.
My pride, I have to admit, I was very proud when she,
Yeah.
when she did it. And I can always remember when it came to the elders all went along and shook hands with them and welcomed them.
Yeah.
And when I came to Ali, I thought, nah, I'll kiss her.
Sure.
So I shook hands with the rest and I kissed her. But I really was. I was very proud of her because she had done that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of the development of the family and the faith.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah.
And it's carried on.
What about for you, Ali? Are there ways that being a parent has shaped your faith or changed your understanding of God?
See, I would say absolutely. When I became a parent, I really had a completely different view of the depth of God's love. And it also shows a different depth of mercy and forgiveness. And it just changes your prayer, changed my prayer life. It's a different kind of focus, just really realizing how much you have to surrender to God's will and God's timing, from sleeping through the night to kids going to school, to them traveling, to just not, I'm not in control. It really did. It taught me about love. It taught me about surrender. It taught me about trust.
Yeah.
So all of that really, when I had my boys, I have another one as well. Connor's working today. When Max was the first and Connor's younger, and when I had my boys, it really, and I thought, my goodness, if I have this love for them,
Yeah.
and God is bigger than all of this, oh my goodness, how much does he love us?
Yeah.
So that changed my perspective and my
Yeah.
relationship with God.
Yeah, for sure.
Every aspect of my faith, I think
Yeah.
it deepened it. And that's the thing, as Dad said, I'm the same. It wasn't the Damascus Road event for me either. But there have been events along the way which have been pretty life-changing
Sure.
on my faith journey, and becoming a parent was one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I think there's an awareness as you grow up in it and as you grow with it. There is an awareness of God's love and God's presence in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get used to it. It's a bit like I always feel about prayer. You can have a particular prayer at a particular prayer time, but
Sure.
there are many times during a day when you just have that thought and you pray to God that, thank you, or more often help me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that you grow up in that and you get used to it and it becomes a way of life.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So thinking about your family, and you're all sort of growing up in faith together in different stages and things. So how would you say that your family has encouraged you to grow in your faith? Maybe we'll start with you, Max.
Yeah, I didn't get to go in the last one. 'Cause
Yeah.
we're
Yes,
having
you're not yet a parent, but
No, not yet. Not yet. Not for a while, probably.
That's okay. I don't know if I'm ready to be a grandparent yet.
I think everyone in my family, kind of serves in the church.
yeah.
So I think that was a pretty big example growing up. Like, my mother was always involved in like rector's ward and stuff, just on the board, doing different things. And my dad does a lot of kids' church stuff and a lot of stuff with the prayer committee now. So everyone has always been kind of involved in the church. So I think when I was younger, kind of middle school to high school, I did a lot of the kids' church stuff here as well. And I think that was a pretty good way for me to get involved. There was helping out at kids' church. There was, of course, Camp Trinity. A big shout out there.
Yeah.
Lots of fun.
Yeah.
Great time. And I was even in Nikki and the Bradshaw Boys, the band that we had for a while.
Okay.
It was
Very cool.
There was a couple years where we had a band downstairs. We would do a couple songs kind of every other week, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Kind of our own little worship band for the kids. It was a lot of fun songs like God's Love is Bigger Than a Burger.
Okay.
So
Wow.
it's kind of more of a
You
basis.
still know the words for it, don't
Oh
you?
yeah, bigger than a burger, bigger than a house, bigger than an elephant, and bigger than a mouse.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Poetry.
Yes.
But it's like a basis to how we can introduce kids, right? So
Yeah.
I found, my dad does kids church. I did kids church. I think it's a great way to serve because you have to know the material to
Yeah.
teach it or explain it.
Yeah.
So then it forces you to kind of look more in depth. So I think just everyone being involved in the church kind of helped me to get involved and to serve
Yeah.
just for the community and the church.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. What about for you, Allie? Are there ways that your family has helped you to grow in your faith?
I think, there's obviously, I learned a lot through my mum and dad and their encouragement and the same thing. I grew up seeing my dad and my mum doing things in the church. In fact, in some ways I feel like I became my dad a bit.
Sure.
All those things, you're like, I will never do that. I will never do that.
Yes.
And probably when I was about 12, that consisted of, oh, he's just always talking. We can't get home. Church is finished. And
Yeah.
I've heard that. From the boys used to walk home sometimes on a Sunday because Rick and I were doing stuff.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, my kids have helped encourage me and they've inspired me. When Connor was 16, just before COVID hit, he did some work with the minister then, Simon, and Connor preached.
Wow.
Twice. He preached in the January and he spoke. But he spoke from his heart and he spoke from his faith. And And I was so proud, just proud to see him owning his faith and see him sharing what he's learned and where, just where he wants to go with his faith and how he talks to his friends about it. So I learn from my kids too.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's quite amusing, actually, that you talk about you do what I did. And I can always remember back home, it was, oh, you're Ali's dad.
Okay.
Well, I did.
And then I come here and it's, you're Ali's dad. Nothing changes.
No, guess not. Yeah, but what about for you? How has your family encouraged you or helped you grow in your faith?
Well, as I already said, but I'm not conscious of my family having done it. I'm conscious of them being there.
Yeah.
What Ali said about having to go on our own because I was always talking to somebody or doing something.
Yes.
I always vowed I wouldn't actually get that way because I had been there. My father was like that.
Yes. Yeah.
And I didn't want to become like my father in the church.
Yeah.
I wanted to be more involved with my family.
Sure.
And guess what? I got involved in the church. And
Yeah.
I became very like my father in the church because he, in his time, was something like 20 years as a session clerk. I was 15 years a session clerk and 50 years an elder. So, yes, I was steeped in it.
Yeah.
And it became more of a priority than my family. And I'm not recommending that, and I'm not saying it's a good thing.
Sure.
But yes, I fell into the trap.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth noting. You should limit what you do. You've got to get your priorities.
Sure.
Church is a priority, but
course,
your family should top it.
Yeah. That's so interesting to hear you all sort of reflect on different ways about how you look at your parents and you say, okay, well, that's good maybe, but that's not how I'm going to be. And then, for better or for worse, we often end up mimicking that.
And it's really easy. It's the whole Mary Martha thing. It's really easy when you're in a busy church community with a lot going on. It's really easy to get involved. But also remembering it's not just about serving. It's about growing your faith.
Yeah.
And what you're doing, where you're volunteering, is it also supporting your spiritual life and your faith development?
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. It does give me a glimpse as to what I am most likely going to see of myself in the future. If everyone in my family has been doing the exact same thing over and over. Sure. Especially now that I'm engaged to someone whose father is a minister and mother does a lot of kids' church as well.
Right.
It's probably going to be a lot of serving in the future.
Sure, yeah. And I think Ali was sharing with me earlier this week, you're also thinking about, your own sort of church leadership path as well.
Yeah, so I guess... Yeah, we have to look we've just moved. Yeah. So we were at a place in Guelph and we were going to a church. And there was actually a few people from Trinity who had gone to Guelph University as well. And we would see them sometimes at the church. So that was kind of nice. It was new people plus familiar faces. Yep. So it kind of helps you makes it easier to go to the church. Because you know people you're going to see. Yeah. But now we're in Kitchener. So we're going to have to do kind of the whole thing again. Yeah. Look for a new church, kind of scope things out, see what kind of vibes they have. Sure. And just kind of figure out where we want to go from there.
Yeah.
When we came here, we didn't think we were coming to a new church because we've been coming here for 21 years.
Yeah.
Well, I think you've been 10 years. You've been about 10 years where you've been visiting, and you would come for 6 weeks at a time sometimes. So Mum and Dad already had friends here. Right. People on the door when they came in already knew their names. So
yes, it didn't sound like a new church when we came here because we'd been here.
Right. Yeah.
It was a bit different.
For sure. So are there ways that your faith looks similar to or different from other people in your family? I mean, you've all sort of talked about, okay, we're walking in the path of our parents, but I think we're all individuals as well. So how does your faith look similar to or different from others?
Okay.
You want to start? Go ahead.
I never knew my my paternal grandfather.
Okay.
I knew my paternal grandmother, but she didn't attend church.
Okay.
And I never knew my maternal grandmother. I knew my maternal grandfather, and he had nothing to do with the church.
Okay.
So I was moving, my parents, rather, were moving in a different sort of path.
Sure.
From my own perspective, well, Ali has a brother,
Yes.
and we went to church as a family. His mother told him, no, he had to go to church. There was none of this skipping off until he was 16.
Okay.
On his 16th birthday, he decided he wasn't going back to church. And I don't think he's been inside the door since, other than to see her married.
And Max baptized.
And Max baptized.
Okay.
That saddens me, but I know I'm not alone.
Sure.
I know a lot of good Christian guys whose family have this same sort of thing, that maybe one of the families in church and
Yeah.
one has nothing to do with it. I don't know why that happens. And it saddens me, but you never know.
Yeah.
The Holy Spirit could knock on his door someday. And I hope something happens, because it means my granddaughter is having no introduction to the church, and that's sad.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see that happen.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
we can only pray that somewhere along the line
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
the dart will come.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting that people can be raised in the same way, but we are individuals, and we make our own choices about how we respond to that. For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is, okay, they don't come to church. We don't love them less as individuals.
No, of course
You know,
not.
that's-
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Just saddened a bit by it, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And as I say, I live in hope.
Yeah.
I live in hope.
Yeah, it's good.
Well, you also, like, my father wasn't initially a Christian when they got or first started dating. My mother did the flirt and convert tactic.
And it worked really
And it
well in
worked.
your case.
I used to take him to youth group.
Okay.
He would come to youth group with me
Okay.
some weekends.
But in doing that, you were able to bring him to the church, and then also when his parents would come and visit,
Right.
they would also come to Trinity as well. So the same kind of thing. They were offset from him, kind of.
Right.
Every few months we would get one set, and then the other few months
Okay.
is the next grandparents. So when they come and visit, they would also come to the church. So then it was like our whole family was known in the church.
Yeah.
So people knew both sets of grandparents, which was nice, even if they weren't here at all the times. But then on the other side, my uncle and aunts and their kids don't really go to or don't do church either. So
Yeah.
it's the same kind of thing. One kid is kind of at church, but I guess they were never brought to church in the same way.
Right.
Well, your dad and his brother went to church as kids. Grandma and Papa went to church, and actually what was wonderful was after Grandma and Papa came to church here, then they found a church again back home in Scotland. So they went back to church. The Holy Spirit knocked on their door while they were here.
Yeah.
So the darts do fly, Dad. The darts do fly. But I think another way to look at are things similar or different.
Yeah.
We all like different kinds of worship and different kind of churches and church experience.
Oh, here she goes.
No, I was thinking of you this morning when we sang Blessed Assurance, Jesus is Mine.
Yes.
You know, that's a much more traditional, that's the kind of worship song that we would sing in church when I grew up.
Yes.
Right? So let me just do a little confession. So when my brother and I used to go, when we were we all would go into church with our own hymn books.
Okay.
So there's a real difference
Yes.
to worship styles now.
Yep.
And we'd have our hymn books, and there would be a plaque on the wall with the hymn numbers in them. And Neil and I, the first thing we used to do when we went into church was look up the hymn and see how many verses it was, and did it have a chorus?
Yes.
Because if it was 6 verses with a chorus, we would be saying,
Yep. Yep.
And so, but I know that my dad loves when my mum and dad both love when we have more traditional hymns mixed
Sure.
in. And Libby does that quite a lot here. There's a kind of integration of worship styles. But I would, talking about similar and different, we all have slightly different types of worship style that we prefer and we enjoy, and we hear, our hearts are touched in different ways, even
Sure.
within the one worship service. Is it music? Is it the prayer? Is it? And again, it's different in each church. I'm sure when you and Chloe, when you talk about what you'll be looking for in Kitchener, what will you be looking for in your new church?
I mean, it's a really good question. I think we'll probably be looking for a church that has people kind of our age. Kitchener's close to Waterloo University, so
Right.
there's going to be kind of a younger crowd around. But we do both enjoy worship, so we will be looking for a church that's kind of fits our same kind of worship ideals. Chloe used to sing
Okay.
with Libby here back when she was here. So she has also had involvement in worship. So somewhere that I think we can find a way to serve either through worship or potentially also working with kids. Chloe currently works as an educational assistant, so
Okay.
she's already doing kids stuff during the week.
Yeah.
So I don't know if she want
She
to
might want a
continue that
break.
at church.
Yeah.
She might want to break there, find a different way to serve.
Yeah.
But somewhere, I think a nice welcoming place. It might not be somewhere as big as Trinity.
Sure.
There's a lot of people here. So if there's less
It's a big
people, it
church,
might be
yeah.
easier for us to kind of get in there
Yeah,
and
for
meet
sure,
some people.
for sure.
It's not as scary.
Yeah.
But yeah, somewhere I think kind of like that.
Yeah.
Where we're just going to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And somewhere where the preacher, of course, we think we can hear from.
Right.
Or
yeah.
speaks to us.
For sure. For sure.
I thought you were going to use the word suffer, but not.
See, and so what's interesting to me, and I think is true of most people in younger generations, is you didn't mention a particular denomination on
Yes.
that list of things.
No, I didn't. And that might scare him
Yes.
because he's Presbyterian and wants to convert the
I've
Anglicans.
come a long way.
But
Yes.
I think there's a lot more to finding a place, because the place that we were going to in Guelph is more of a Baptist church.
Okay.
So that's already a few different
Yeah.
things going on here. But I think somewhere where we can find a place that wants to worship Jesus and love Jesus,
Yeah.
bring other people to Jesus, I think is the main thing. And
Yeah.
then kind of there might be some different liturgy stuff that goes on.
Sure.
But we'll just have to kind of figure out the vibe, I guess, and see
Yeah.
how it is.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
we just want to celebrate Jesus and worship him. So
Yeah.
I love that. And because having a stereotype of a church is so wrong, because Jesus is Jesus.
Yeah.
And he's never changing. And I must admit, when we moved here, one of the things we said to the estate agent was we want to be able to to have choice for a
Sure.
couple of churches. And I'd pegged that there were 3 churches in Streetsville, the United, the Presbyterian and the Anglican. And
Yes.
I have to say, I hadn't thought about going to the Anglican church. Just being Scottish and
Sure.
having
Yes.
my encouraging father.
Yes.
And when it was one morning, I was in a children's play group, and I was telling the woman who ran it, who was Muslim, the Muslim woman was running it, and I was saying, I'm looking for a church. I've got these little babies. And she said to me, she said, I know a woman that goes to a great church, family church, great atmosphere.
Yeah.
And she called the woman and put her straight on the phone to me. And I was like, oh. And it turns out, at the time, our associate minister was called Lance Dixon, and it was his wife, Kelly. And Kelly said, I'll meet you at the back of the church.
Okay.
And welcomed me in. And it was when I got here, and I saw it was an Anglican church.
Right.
And it didn't matter about the name or the denomination. Trinity was just welcoming and friendly, and the community, right from the first day.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah. Oh, that's so good.
An interesting name. I remember Lance. Lance
Remember Lance?
baptized Connor.
He baptized Connor, yeah.
Okay. There you go.
So I'm not new to Trinity.
No.
I'm not new to Anglicans.
No.
I've been around Anglicans.
Yes. That's right. Slowly acclimatizing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh.
It takes longer to change.
Yeah, I don't think I've converted any yet.
Oh man.
Keep trying.
Okay.
But there we go. We're all unique.
Yep.
We're all unique, but we're all family and all loved by God.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. No, that's so good. Yeah. I think it's so neat to sort of hear like what I'm hearing in your family story is that it's a family effort, right? That you all bring different things to the table, you all influence and lead each other, but yeah, that you are also individual people who have made this decision to keep coming to church, keep showing up, keep following Jesus in the ways that you're individually called as part of a collective unit.
Yeah.
And I think honestly that's probably the way that it should be. If we all lived in a perfect world, we would be people following Jesus in a community of people following Jesus.
Yeah.
Whatever that looks like for us.
It's Mother's Day. I think I've got to throw in the point that
Yes.
Mother had a bigger influence, I think, on Ali and Neil than I had.
Okay.
Because
In
she was
what
more
way?
with them. Yeah.
Okay.
So credit her mother.
Yes, of course.
Oh, yes.
Always credit the moms. The moms are very important people.
Oh, I'm not stupid.
Good. Well, thank you all very much. This has been a really fun, really hopeful conversation. And great to get to know you all a little bit better.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. And thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Trinity Talks. I hope that you're also able to take some of these reflections and maybe talk about faith with your own family and think about what your faith journey has looked like wherever you are on that spectrum. And we will see you again next week.